was taking materials from the dirt and reabsorbing it into plants that were being grown. Worms can only communicate through taste and touch, however, they are able to avoid predators by feeling vibrations in the air and in the ground. The environment that the worm is in can change the way it behaves. For example, if it is in the rainforest with bacteria, they have been trained to avoid all unknown bacteria because of what it may do to them. Worms are able to survive in their environment because of their shape and their size. Their shape and their size allows them to burrow through nutrient-rich soil. Their activity patterns help them survive in the environment because they are rarely on the surface to avoid getting eaten by creatures that they cannot feel the vibrations of. Worms can communicate with each other using their taste and touch, however, they are unable to communicate with other species. Some groups of worms have even been seen traveling in groups following a leader. In Bertie County, where this particular worm was picked up, there is a plentiful amount of these creatures. Their numbers became so plentiful because of the nutrient-rich soil that was surrounding them. Over time, the amount of worms in this area has stayed consistent. This also has to do with the fact that there are new species have came across the area. Worms do not have teeth. They cannot physically chew food. Instead, they soften up various plants with the help of microorganisms and absorb the nutrients. They also absorb nutrients from the soil in which they burrow. There's a symbiotic relationship with worms and these microorganisms. The bacteria softens the plants to where worms can eat the nutrients, and the bacteria then get to eat the mucus that the worm leaves behind. The climate from which I got this particular worm from is in Bertie County. Bertie is known for having weather in the 80s one day and then 40s the next. However, it is a traditionally fairly warm region where worms flourish in. If the climate were to continue to change, worms would have to change their activity patterns. They have normal activity between 55 and 85 degrees, but if this changes to an extreme temperature, then worms will become less active in their environment. Next, we're going to the aquatic terrain for Animalia Kingdom. The kingdom Animalia holds this aquatic phylum known as arthropods. The Arthropoda is where the species known as shrimp are in. Brown shrimp traditionally live in salt water less than 180 feet deep, but can range anywhere from there to 300 feet. As they grow older, they migrate to deeper and saltier water. Shrimp are very viable in their ecosystem because they are scavengers. They act as a trash can would by getting rid of the decaying material that other animals have. They also help other species by eating or removing parasites and bacteria from host fish. A shrimp is a very active creature. They are always looking for food of some kind. After they eat it, they may slow down, but they'll go right back to it after about an hour or so to start their hunt for food again. Shrimps adapt over time to be able to sense more chemicals than their ancestors were able to. This helps them avoid things such as oil spills and gas leaks, which would soften their shell if they don't die before that. Shrimp have an extremely sharp beak that they use if a predator comes for them. It is also used to keep them stable when swimming in any direction because they are always on the move looking for food. This keeps them safe because they are not resting in one place for long periods. Shrimp communicate with each other using rumbling noises. This is almost like the sound of humans trying to talk underwater, but much quieter because of their size. Shrimp have also been found talking in synchronized patterns like they were singing. Freshwater as saltwater shrimp are becoming an endangered species. This is because of gigantic nets being used to catch a large number of them at one time. Also, in some cases, there has been an outbreak of invasive species that target shrimp at an alarming rate. Shrimp feed off of algae, decaying matter, and even species such as plankton. They are always on the move looking for food, and when they find it, they stop for a while, kind of like they're at a truck stop. They protect themselves with their sharp beaks and quick reflexes, making it hard for common animals to catch them. Shrimp use mutualism with the gobby fish. They create a burrow that the fish can stay in overnight in return for eating the decaying matter in the soil. Shrimp require salty water with temperatures above 37 degrees Fahrenheit. They normally prefer low salinity waters compared to other saltwater fish. This is because of the oxygen level inside of the water. Climate change is affecting the acidity level in the ocean, making it more acidic. This will tremendously affect the way that shrimp live because of their diet. Most of their diet will become wiped out because of the quick change in pH. That could be the end of shrimp. Moving on to the Plantae kingdom in the aquatic. In the Plantae kingdom, there lies a species called moss. Moss is in the phylum Bryphota. This moss was located in the pond that is beyond my house. In that pond, there are frogs, snakes, and a variety of different fish. Moss can help regulate the amount of moisture in the plants around them because of the way that they seep up and excrete water. They need a lot of water to thrive, and because of this, they are able to take water out of the air. Water from the pond can evaporate, and this may leave some plants without water, but the moss that grows on certain plants will absorb the moisture and recirculate it into that plant. Moss acts such as a sponge would. They absorb water and use their roots to grapple onto plants. They maintain moisture in an environment and keep the conditions around them humid. Moss is a small, non-vascular, flowerless plant that has evolved over time to be able to maintain moisture in an environment. Moving on. The way that moss behaves is vital to its survival at any given moment, in any given environment. This is because without moss making the environment around it, many plants would die. Moss also emits oxygen, helping improve the air quality around it. Moss cannot communicate, so to say, in the ways that we can. However, it can sense when a plant that is attached to it is running low on water, and it can even help them attain some. They communicate with the plant that they are attached to based on how they are surviving on this plant. Moss is one of the most ubiquitous and thriving plants that are on Earth. Moss is one of the oldest plants in Earth's history, and it is currently in every continent on Earth. This is because of its ability to adapt and live in the most harsh environments. Because of the way that it can adapt and get moisture from the air, it has allowed moss to multiply swiftly over time. Moss is capable of building up chemical compounds that allows it to protect them from enemies. The chemicals that moss are able to excrete work as an insect or a pest repellent. The toxins scare away pests so that it will not be eaten by different creatures. Moss creates food through photosynthesis and uses mutualism. They use this because it grows on different plants, allowing itself to create a home, and the other plant can absorb moisture and nutrients from the moss. Moss is able to survive in any climate except around salty water. This moss, in particular, was raised in a warmish climate with wildlife such as frogs, snakes, fish, and horses wandering around it. It has had a pond around it, and despite times of little to no rain, it has been able to get moisture from the air. The main way in which moss can be affected by climate change is by having the higher temperatures, making them unable to capture as much carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The higher temperatures will make it less active in the environment. For the kingdom plantae, this terrestrial plant is known as a pine tree. Pine trees are in the phylum Pinophyta. This pine straw came from a pine tree in my backyard. In this ecosystem, there are squirrels, birds, and a variety of bugs. Pine trees are vital for their ecosystem because they allow many species to have a home or to build one. They also can provide food for wildlife. A pine tree can be used as a nursery for birds or squirrels who raise their young with a nest. Pine trees absorb sunlight using photosynthesis. They make food by making glucose that trees use. They usually pollinate anywhere from March to April, in which their main goal is to breed trees and have them raised and to grow. The environment that it is raised in can change the way they behave. It can make pines grow to extreme heights because of competition for sunlight. The behavior that pine trees have in their environment allows them to survive in their environment for a lot of reasons. For example, the pine tree's needle-like leaves allow less surface area, which makes the tree able to survive on less water. Where this specific tree was located, the only water that is accessible to it would be from the rain. This is why it has been able to survive for so long. Scientists have shown that trees are able to communicate with each other through networks. They only do this when there is danger such as drought, insect attacks, or even diseases. As of now, pine trees are plentiful in the world. They are thriving throughout many regions. One thing that has helped these trees grow at such a pace is the sheer amount of pollen and seeds that they produce during their growing seasons. Pine trees feed by using photosynthesis and gaining energy from sunlight. They also get minerals from the soil to support their healthy growth. They produce oleoresin, which defers animals from attacking them and eating their bark. This oleoresin is a sappy-like oil that attacks taste buds so it will not be appetizing. Pine trees do have a mutualism relationship with other plants such as moss and different fungi, where in return for nutrients they allow them to grapple onto the outside of their bark. The climate for which this particular species of a pine tree is located in is traditionally warm with good access to water. Climate change will severely affect pine tree growth because they are not able to sustain life in such harsh conditions. They cannot live in as high of a temperature as the earth is rising to. It will tremendously hurt the amount of pine trees in the world.